So in the What If finale, as the Watcher is getting together the Guardians of the Multiverse, we saw a surprise team member. We cut to Tony and Gamora on Nidavellir in the process of melting down the Infinity Gauntlet, and the Watcher gives this speech listing her accomplishments.
Gamora, survivor of Sakaar and destroyer of Thanos.
So if you were wondering,
why is Gamora?
Yes, why is Gamora? Did you miss an episode of What If? Well, you kinda did. We all did. There is a lost episode of What If that producer Brad Winderbaum confirmed was pushed to season 2 because of COVID. So let's talk about this lost episode, what happens, and how it would have made the finale of What If so much better. So I'm going to be talking a lot about leaks to various websites from the past couple years. We don't usually talk about leaks because they're usually made up and because I don't want stories spoiled for me, and I'm betting most of you don't either. So some of what I'm saying may or may not be accurate, and we're also going to do a fair amount of speculating. So careful for potential spoilers of an episode of What If that won't be out for a couple years. So this lost episode obviously featured Tony Stark and Gamora. The Watcher calls her the survivor of Sakaar. Now, Sakaar, you'll remember, is the trash planet ruled by the Grandmaster,
the creator of Sakaar and father of the Contest of Champions,
where he holds the Contest of Champions. Sakaar is not this planet, where Gamora's family was killed in the Infinity War flashback. So the Watcher is basically telling us that Gamora ended up in the Contest of Champions and emerged victorious. So why is Tony Stark there? Well, look at the markings on his armor. They're very reminiscent of Jack Kirby's artwork, the same artwork that inspired the production design of Thor Ragnarok and Sakaar. This is also new armor for Tony, reminiscent of his Hulkbuster.
I'm sorry.
But notice these new additions like the thrusters on his back. These seem very reminiscent of Sakaaran technology. So the rumor is that this lost episode of What If showed Tony Stark blowing up the Chitauri and then just barely missing the wormhole because Steve Rogers made the decision to close it just a little bit early.
Close it.
So then there's a sequence of Tony floating lost in space like at the beginning of Endgame. But then he falls through another random wormhole which takes him to Sakaar.
My name is Korg. I'm kind of like the leader in here. Made of rocks, as you can see.
This would explain why Taika Waititi was originally listed as a cast member for the show, when Korg actually has no dialogue in the episodes where he appears. And it explains why Jeff Goldblum would return for only one episode.
We're keeping the scoots.
Because originally, Korg, Grandmaster, Topaz, and Valkyrie were going to appear in this episode. And a couple years ago, a Lego design leaked that showed Tony Stark's Sakaaran armor. This included Tony Stark in his Black Sabbath t-shirt from Avengers, Uatu, and Valkyrie, even though Tessa Thompson was never confirmed to do her voice in the show.
Look, I know you too. It's weird.
So we can presume that Tony lands on Sakaar, his armor is damaged, and his power is low from keeping himself alive in space. Then Scrapper 142 finds Tony, enslaves him,
I don't like that word.
turns him into a prisoner with a job, and he enters the Contest of Champions, where he meets Korg and Meek, etc.
This is my very good friend over here, Meek. He's an insect and has knives for hands.
Now, Tony is clever. He made his Mark I suit in a cave with a bunch of scraps, so he has no problem using alien tech to augment his armor into a proto-Hulkbuster. Then, instead of Hulk, he becomes the great champion that is untouchable in the arena.
Wow, this is amazing, man. It's like being the Hulk, not actually.
Hello there, I would like some chicken, please.
No, stop asking, it's not today.
You're mean and this isn't fair.
The other day, I carved a whole chicken in the break room, so now Doug has a taste for poultry. See, I've been cutting up birds to get ready for Thanksgiving, and that is why I wanted a knife that was so high quality, it could have been made by Hattori Hanzo. So this year, I am using Kamikoto knives, the sponsor of this video. Each knife comes in a heavy-duty ash wood box to store it safely, and it just feels special when you open it. Now this weekend I used them to carve a whole chicken, and it sliced through the meat like butter, and perfectly balanced, as all things should be. The knives are created by tapping into 800-year-old traditional Japanese techniques, swordsmithing, ironworking, and metal casting. Each blade is made of Japanese steel, using techniques that have been perfected by generations of knife smiths. Now, all of these knives have gone through a 19-step process that takes years to complete, and each set comes with a lifetime guarantee. I mean, no wonder these knives are used by chefs in Michelin star restaurants. So, Kamikoto is offering Screen Crush viewers an extra $50 off any purchase with the discount code ScreenCrush. So Click the link in the description to take advantage of this offer. Now, there was also a couple of leaks, one from Reddit user Dow366 and the other to the Illuminati, that claimed that Thanos was going to become aware that Tony Stark was on Sakaar. So he sends Gamora to assassinate him. This would have been probably just before Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1. So Gamora is wearing the armor that she was wearing in Endgame that is more modeled after Thanos' look.
Which was the style at the time.
So presumably she can't get to Tony because he's the champion and well protected. So instead, she enters the tournament to kill him in combat. But you know, Gamora's always having a change of heart, and she ends up liberating Tony and telling him that her dad was actually behind the attack on New York, and then she tells him about Thanos' plan to get the stones and wipe out half of all life. Kind of like how the Infinity War trailer originally cut their separate conversations together.
If he gets all the Infinity Stones, he can do it with the snap of his fingers.
Tell me his name again.
The two of them team up to defeat Thanos together. Maybe she even kills him with his own helicopter blade weapon that he used in Endgame and she uses in this episode. Then they travel to Nidavellir to destroy the ring, Infinity Gauntlet, which, okay. Eitri the dwarf made the gauntlet for Thanos, but then Thanos took Eitri's hands to make sure that he couldn't make another.
Your life is yours, he said. But your hands are mine alone.
But here, Eitri still has his hands. Now there is a theory that Eitri did not design the gauntlet for Thanos. He designed it for Odin, who at one point was trying to collect all the stones. It's why he had the Tesseract and ended up hiding on Earth, and why he knew so much about the Ether.
Their leader Malekith made a weapon out of that darkness, and it was called the Ether. While the other relics often appear as stones, the Ether is fluid and ever-changing.
But, as the theory goes, once he found out about the price for the Soul Stone, that he would have to kill Frigga, he abandoned his quest. It's probably around this time that he realized that he shouldn't be a conqueror, and he banished Hela. So, thousands of years later, Thanos steps in and uses Odin's old design for the gauntlet.
Fine. I'll do it myself.
So now, Gamora is destroying the gauntlet to make sure that no one can ever use it. Now, what I love most about this is that we still see Tony's paranoia and self-destructive tendencies.
How do we put a suit of armor around the world? Around the galaxy?
Notice that he repeats his goal from Age of Ultron.
I see a suit of armor around the world.
Much like the One Ring, Tony is tempted to use this great power for good, when as the finale shows, it will only be corrupted for evil. This is probably why the Watcher chose Gamora. He needed a fighter who recognized the stones were evil and who wouldn't be tempted to use them. And this small addition would have made the entire season of What If so much better. So it's kind of become a running joke that Tony Stark is the Kenny of What If. He dies in every episode. But this also shows the importance of Tony Stark. Because he dies, he can't solve everyone's problems. Tony Stark in the MCU is a lot like Donatello in the later days of the original Ninja Turtles cartoon. He's the guy who always uses science to find a way to win. So if the others can't rely on him because he's dead, it places that reality in a much more vulnerable spot, and it just makes for a better episode of What If. Tony can't go through his dad's journals and read about Hank Pym's formula and figure out that he's killing the Avengers. Tony can't find a cure for the zombie plague. Heck, even in the Lost episode, Tony and Gamora were going to kill Thanos together. But don't forget, Tony's brilliance also caused the end of universe after universe. His great sin was creating Ultron, and he created Ultron because of his guilt over selling weapons and his fear that if aliens did invade, it would be his fault.
You could have saved us.
So every reckless action of Tony's, Ultron, Civil War, time travel, is motivated by his overwhelming guilt, which, let's face it, his dad probably planted in him by making him feel like a constant failure.
He was cold, he was calculating, he never told me he loved me, he never even told me he liked me.
And we see this same restless, destructive energy in this episode of What If in just a couple lines of dialogue.
These Infinity Stones. Look, I'm out of the weapons business, not my cake, but how do we put a suit of armor around the world?
Here, he's basically setting himself on the same path that he traveled in Ultron. He's like Boromir. He would take the magic artifacts and intend to use them for good while unleashing unspeakable evil.
It is a gift to the foes of Mordor.
Imagine if Tony had used all the stones to invent Ultron. He would have created the exact same threat that is now destroying the multiverse. And this all would have landed so much better if we would have had an episode devoted to Tony Stark. If we could see him repeat the beats of Iron Man 3, struggling to survive without his armor, building weaponry from scratch, and rising to the top of the contest of champions. We would have seen Tony learn about Thanos from Gamora, learn that his weaponry was never going to be enough to defend Earth, and seen his fear when he learns about the snap. And we would understand exactly why the Watcher, like Nick Fury, didn't want him on his team.
You're moon-shaped ugly mug.
Not you, Stark.
Which leads us to believe at this juncture we'd only like to use you as a consultant.
We would look back and see that the whole season of What If was building toward this, taking all these heroes from the margins that maybe we didn't think much about or we undersold, and then placing them in this situation where they could take center stage and save the multiverse. But tell me what you thought about this lost episode of What If. What other What If episodes would you like to see? Did you like the finale? Tell me on Twitter or let me know in the comments below. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe and ring that bell for alerts. For Screen Crush, I'm Ryan Arey.